Well, hey everybody, it's been a while since I've done a video, and so I wanted to pop in and just provide another resource because I think it's so important to have the experiential aspect of what we're trying to do here, which ultimately is learning to try softer. Or what I mean by that a lot of times is learning to pay compassionate attention to our experience, and that really sounds good in theory, but it can often be much harder to practice. And for those of us who've experienced imperfect or not good enough parenting in our youth, what that can mean is that we don't have a template to pay compassionate attention to ourselves. And so really all the work that I'm doing and that I'm wanting to provide, that's one of the things we're always wanting to keep in mind. And I also just want to add that oftentimes, if that's our story, it's not because our parents didn't love us, but there are lots of things that come into play. There's systemic issues, there's issues of financial poverty, those types of things. It can also be about our parents, their experiences and their own trauma. So it's complex. And I think though, that doesn't mean we can't honor that it's part of our experience, because when we honor that something is real and true, that's when we have the opportunity to actually work with it. So that's just something to keep in mind. Today, what I want to tell you a little bit more about is this idea that is commonly referred to as resourcing. Some of you know that I am trained as an EMDR therapist, and that means eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And this is a form of therapy that was originally developed by Francine Shapiro, and it was especially used for PTSD especially. But we've come to find that it's so helpful for lots of different issues, because what it's trying to tap into is our body's own ability to actually move through pain, to help it to process. And really that's how our body is created, which I think is pretty much a miracle, honestly. And so it taps into our ability to do that. So basing off this idea that the more resources we have, when we have other parts of our story that are difficult, if we can continue to strengthen our resources, it means that as we heal, we have other neural circuitry to connect to. And this is so helpful. For me as a survivor of trauma, it personally has meant really spending time not only honoring the pain, but also reflecting on those areas of my life that have helped me to move through hard. Maybe ways that I have been stronger than I thought was possible, or maybe times when someone has really seen me. And so today I want to give you sort of a template for something that you can do. And this is just, again, a version of that resourcing. And so I am going to ask you to consider a time or a space in your life when maybe you have felt like, one really popular one with my clients is the belief that I have choices. So this affirmation and this idea, I have choices. So for me, what I might do is consider, when in my life have I felt like I've had the ability to act on the reality that I really do have choices. So I might take a moment and think about, for me, sometimes that has come up, especially in my relationship with my husband. I've felt really respected and honored in the ability to really choose what's best. So what I would do is I would think of that time. And I would just take a moment and I would consider the setting, just when that was, where that was. And as I do that, I want to make sure that I'm coming from sort of a place where I'm fairly neutral. So you can always do something like a grounding exercise if you're feeling a lot of anxiety or disturbance first. So we want to, you can name like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, that whole exercise to get yourself neutral. And then as I do that, as I connect with that scene, some of you might remember this idea of doing self-tapping. So this just touches on our body's ability to strengthen what we're thinking about by integrating both hemispheres of our brain. So I might think about this time when I felt like I had choices. I have choices. And I'm just gonna stay with that, not super long, maybe 15 to 20 seconds. And what I'm gonna recommend that you do is try this, maybe we call this a set. So to do that 3 different times with a brief pause in between. And here's what I want you to look for. If things begin to get negative as you're tapping, go ahead and stop tapping, because we aren't trying to, we don't want to strengthen that other area where it's not helpful. Right now, we really want to focus on strengthening what is helpful. And as you do that, what my hope is that this belief that I have choices and this experience where you have felt like you have choices, they actually become even stronger and more anchored into your body. And so as you continue to do healing and do things like setting boundaries with people, the hope is that this would be easier to pull from, this belief that I have choices. And again, as always, we're keeping our window of tolerance in mind as we're doing this. So at any point, if this for some reason isn't helpful, you can always stop, always do grounding. Know that it's always ultimately your choice, but I just want to offer you some more tools. Thanks so much for being here.